it is minimum 30 degrees outside. It's very sunny. And John has sent all of his games athletes out on a bike ride. And he's here in the relative cool, talking to me. How are you?
I'm good. We're like 3 weeks out from games now. Almost exactly. Like the elite start on a Thursday, so a Wednesday today. So like 3 weeks tomorrow, the actual games begin. And we leave in basically 1 week's time. So we leave on Friday next week. So it's like the final stages here, final few days of training. And then we'll head out to the US.
And you'll fly to Chicago, I guess?
Yeah, it's just the easiest way. Like, Madison maybe isn't the easiest place to get to.
No.
Outside of the US. So most people fly Chicago, rent a car, drive to Madison. It's the kind of classic way of getting there.
And where are you going to stay when you get to Madison? Have you got a hotel, Airbnb?
So we start off in Airbnb for like around a week, and then we move into a hotel after that.
And how many people are going? You've got, obviously you, Moritz, Ella.
Yeah, so athlete-wise, this year we'll have Veronika, Moritz and Ella. So Veronika's competing in the teen division.
Which one?
16-17. So she's like in that final teen category competing.
She was the winner for the crown, which was in Easter.
Exactly.
The female winner, I should say.
Yeah, so she won the crown Easter and then qualified. So teams just go through online qualification and then go to games from there. And so she came here probably around like 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, something like that, to do the final stage and then qualified through to the games.
What kind of shape is she in?
Hey, the main thing is for this year is trying to get her through and just enjoy the experience. So she'll be going over with one of our coaches, Renato. And really the focus is like, just enjoy the experience. So hopefully she's prepared enough to be able to enjoy it.
I mean, she seems like quite a together young lady, actually. When I spoke to her before the crown, she told me about, she was made decisions last year about changing coaches and changing gyms and all to kind of get to where she is. So it seems like she's in good condition for this.
Yeah, I think at that age, like so many things can go up and down.
Yeah.
I think the one thing we've seen this year, with especially like highlighted by Hayley at the start of the year and then Mal more recently, is just how different or how stressful it can be for that age group. And it's hard to imagine like the pressure of a 18-year-old athlete, who is kind of like taking like lots of weight on their shoulders, lots of pressure, and so young. I think like most people think back to being 18 years old and kind of like the decisions that you had to make were so minimal and didn't have those big implications as these athletes can have. So it's a lot to handle.
It's also kind of putting into a pressure pot, aren't you? Pressure cooker, because you've also got like so much attention through Instagram, social media generally, and there's a lot of like, whether it's real or perceived, but a lot of expectations put upon these people, like the next best thing, and the pressure to perform is huge.
I think ultimately it does boil down to perception. However, there's the thing is that like you kind of mentioned, the consequence of going to the games and being expected to win is kind of huge. To follow in the legacy of someone like Tia from Mal is this huge responsibility. And and I think then it's hard to put yourself in those shoes to be able to go out and perform from such a young age.
And then to have made the very public decision, okay, I'm not going to continue, is actually just as much difficult sort of attention as just continuing. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place when you're one of the new upcoming athletes.
I think we've seen, like, with this this next generation, like with Simone Biles at the Olympics this year, I think kind of set a bit of a precedent that, it's okay to speak about these things, take time off, and be able to look after your mental health. I think there's probably a generation before that was more stoic in that sense of just pushing through, and this idea of pressures of privilege and all of those things, they can kind of bubble up. And so I do think we've seen a bit of a notion where actually, some of these elite athletes have been like, I can perform, but it's still their choice. They shouldn't have to perform. And we've seen a bit more of a new culture in that regard. And I think it's important that these, it's kind of coming back to Veronika being 17 years old, that she looks at the sport from an enjoyable place. It's not just like she has to go out, she has to perform, she has to have all these things. I think us from a bigger perspective, we kind of go, oh, well, look at all that you can achieve. But it's not really our choice in that stage what they want to achieve.
I guess, and also like from your point of view, from a coach's perspective, you have to measure the kind of the things that you're asking her to do, and the pressure that you're applying on her regarding like in each individual, even every individual event, like you have to manage her mindset, manage her expectations.
Yes, I think there's a big picture thing, which is you obviously want an athlete to grow and evolve. And in order to do that, you have to like explore those physical boundaries, but you don't want to do it in such a way that you push beyond it and it becomes a deterrent. So I think that's really where the skill becomes in that aspect. You need the athlete to be able to push, to grow, to be able to get to those new limits of fitness. But you don't want to do that at the detriment of their mental health or their enjoyment and these aspects. So that's like kind of the bigger picture balance. Then discussing with Renata how she'll handle the events, the kind of the specifics. In some ways simpler once you know the athlete well, like what weight she might be able to lift or the way they divide a set. That bigger picture can arguably become more important because it has a bigger impact.
Is Renato the coach who's with the Portuguese program?
Exactly, with O-Pro, we kind of O in Portuguese is the.
Okay, O-Pro.
O-Program.
O-Program.
The program. But, the Portuguese...
How is your Portuguese?
Horrendous. The only way I know Portuguese, or no one's speaking Portuguese, I feel like I should understand it, but I don't understand it.
It does sound really similar to Spanish, but then you start listening, it's like, I haven't got a clue what you're saying.
It's... and I think Portuguese speakers find it a lot easier to understand Spanish people than the other way around.
So he's like taking care of Veronika, or he's her coach, or how will that relationship work?
Yeah, so each athlete we have this year goes in with a specific coach. So Veronika will be going in with Renato, Ella will be going in with Chris, and then I'll be going in with Moritz. So each athlete there. It's also at the games. So like for example, Veronika's competition is going to finish on Thursday. So she'll start on Monday and finish on Thursday. And then Ella, or guys and girls, tend to be quite separated at the games. So, they might run through all the girls' heats, and that might take like 2 hours, and the guys aren't on 2 hours after. So if Ella's going up, we can't just bring Moritz in 2 hours before, etc. So
you're all working on different like timetables.
Yeah, we all work on different timetables, and so it's just important that we're there to be able to support the athletes. It's the biggest stage. And arguably, like if you had 2 females or 2 males, it's easier to be in because they're in the similar time frame. But with different divisions, like for example, if it's team, you need to go separate. So that's one of the things we really tried to do this year, is give more individual attention to each of the athletes from a program.
This is the first year that you are only coaching one specific person, because last year you had Gabby and Jacqueline and Moritz.
Yeah, it might be. So you are right. There might be the first year that I've only gone in specifically. Well, you always go in just one athlete. You always just coach one athlete. But yes, one of the focuses this year has been developing more of our coaching team. So last year Chris was there as well. He was working with Solveig that year. But yes, this is 1 year where we're more being like allocated roles for each of the coaches.
When you're in a competition situation with your individual athlete, there must be high emotional moments and lows, and really, I'm imagining there's a roller coaster. So how do you, as a coach, manage that and also look after yourself?
So I think the management comes very specific. Every athlete has very different requirements and needs, and that's why it's important that before you go to the competition, you've built up that relationship. So you kind of know how they might respond to a good event, a bad event, what they need from you. It's an interesting one. I think you need to be there for the athlete. So how you manage your emotions is, you kind of understanding it's a bit more of a selfless nature. I've always looked at it, I don't have kids. I kind of imagine the transition of going from athlete to coach is similar to going from a kid to parent.
Like a parenting situation.
Yeah, because you have there's no real, when the athlete's on the floor, there's no control of the situation. Ironically, your emotions are kind of dictated by the highs and lows of the athlete, even though you're one step removed. It's not like a direct thing. And so I always think that the best thing is to be like calm, collected, and to be able to bring in that. And actually that requires a lot of work on yourself rather than getting caught up in the emotional side of things. So it's like you need to be in a calm, relaxed place. And if you're not in that calm, relaxed place and you're emotional, then you're not doing well for your athlete. So it's like almost the foundations that you set are very important, and you can't go into that place in a kind of irate or emotional way. I
think that's I can really connect with the parenting thing at the moment, because my daughter's like 17 and has just finished her exams and got the results, and we're having to work through a lot of different things, and managing expectations and working out the next steps of things when it's actually like you can see that person's either like super happy or super unhappy. Yeah. It can really affects me. So you have to be quite stoic, resolute, and then maybe take yourself off for a little bit of a shakedown later, because you don't want them to see that you're doubting or concerned in any way as well, don't you? Well, I do.
Yeah, well, it's very true, and that's why I think it's important. For the coaches, for example, we'll go off, get Chipotle, or do these things where it's like, and it's also important with the other coaches. What's nice is you can relate. With the athlete, the relation kind of stops because they're going through that experience, and they don't necessarily understand or should understand those emotions of the coaches. And therefore, with the coaches, you kind of go off, you have it, and that's kind of your space. We might do it at the end of the day or whatever it may be, so you can kind of get through that and be there for the next stage.
Yeah. So I remember at the end of the games last year, how completely wrung out and exhausted. Well, everybody was, but you in particular. And I had knowing what you know from the process of the games. Can you fully expect that to happen again this year?
Yeah, it's intense. I was pretty done after last year's games. There's always lots of things, there's always lots of pressures as well. We're very much fully committed to the CrossFit world. So there's always lots of pressures. And after last year, I was done. I just slept. Jack and I went on holiday.
Yeah, you went on a nice holiday.
Yeah, we went on a nice holiday, and she'll tell you
she saw you on day 3.
Yeah, I couldn't leave the room. I think we arrived to first we went to Cancun, Mexico. Really nice. I was just in the hotel room. I was just. She had a lot more energy than me, and that kind of we did a bit more travel, and it took a week of just being out. One of the days we arrived to Costa Rica, so I went straight to the hotel. I was probably in that hotel room either series or sleeping for full 24 hours. So these kind of things, they can take their toll a little bit. But so you kind of expect that. So it's a multi-day event. You're really trying to optimize everything for the athlete, and you've kind of gone through this like calm, stoic nature, and so you've kind of repressed all of that emotional side. And I think at the end it just comes out.
Yeah.
You finish the season. You kind of reflect on everything that's been going on, and you're also evaluating. Very quickly the September comes, more competition.
Yeah, it comes around so quick.
Yeah, I think we finished like 10th or whatever, 6th of August, somewhere around that. And then all of a sudden, like September,
Madrid.
Yeah, there's Madrid or other competitions that may be happening.
So how, we've spoken about Veronika, how are Moritz and Ella preparing? What have you been doing to them, as it were?
Yeah. So they're very, there is a difference between rookie and non-rookie.
Oh gosh, yes.
And so for Ella, it's her first year of the games. You go in, just see what it's like. Do you enjoy this experience? We're there to support as much as possible. I think it's really important that you go to that first games and you kind of live in the moment, check in, the type of briefings, all of those things. Like, just live in the moment and really, really just go in with the pure mindset of an experience. And so again, we're trying to set the physical foundations there. From the bike, all these unexpected movements they may do. So, you're as physically good shape as possible. And then with Moritz, it does change as the years go on. He went to the games last year. He didn't have the finish that he wanted.
Where did he finish?
In the 30s.
Oh, top 30, okay.
Oh, no, 30 to 40. I think he was 36, 34, 36.
What do you think about his chances this year?
I think Moritz is a very different athlete. And this is kind of thing, first year was rookie year, the experience. Whereas now it's like, hey, actually, I went, I did that. How am I going to come back? And so, ultimately, your success in sports is defined by the placing on the leaderboard. And that's what people look at. And it's a cruel world.
It is.
Because it's so black and white. And as much as you want to tell the story of this happened because of this happened because of this, and you want to kind of like tell your story, and people go, first, second, third.
Yes. People are it's fairly easy stuff there. They don't really want to look at the nuance.
Exactly. There's no, people are happy with the black and white, There's first, second, third. And so, that does come into the athletes, like, hey, where am I finishing? And I think with cuts, they make the games more stressful.
No, I'm going to say this. You said the C word.
Yeah, like cuts, because you get to the games, and then all of a sudden, like you've reached the final.
Yeah.
But then it's like, actually, no, you haven't reached the final, because all of a sudden we're going to cut down, and the final becomes these top 20. So you've automatically put in like another goal for these athletes.
My stomach just knots up thinking about cuts. I just feel like
they
mad about it.
So last year, I think it was fine.
It was on Sunday, wasn't it?
It was from Saturday to Sunday, and it was 10 athletes.
Yeah. And
you could also argue that because of that, it didn't have as big an impact as when you go down to 20. But it has impacts. I put up like a story yesterday. And the big trouble with cuts, arguably like the overlying principle, is it biases certain events over others.
Absolutely.
And that's to do with the athletes that are competing.
Here's the nuances, though, that nobody's interested in.
No one actually cares. And I think this is why it's an important distinction to go like, hey, here's the entertainment side and here's the sports side.
Yeah.
In the fairness of sports side, and that's safety, fairness, all of these relevant issues. And does the fact that a piece of rope lies on the floor affect the entertainment value? No. But it's something that's really important because it increases the risk of injury of the athletes. Does biasing certain events over others affect the entertainment? No. But it does affect the fairness because, you're kind of arguing that you're testing doing this broad test.
I'm thinking alpaca. Like how much that changed, and from on the Sunday morning, because it was raining a lot.
They took away the rope climbs.
They took away the rope climbs, and we have and there was a completely different finish because of that.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say, for example, the final day. So you take a swim event. You put the swim event on day one, or swim event on the final day, which actually happened in 2019. But for the swimmer, arguably it's better to have the swim on the final day if they make it through, because they can gain more placings. Yeah. So,
it's a lot more points, isn't it, when the amount of athletes is reduced?
Yeah, it's the gaps make the difference. So, even from first to second, there's a bigger gap with 20 athletes than there is with 40 athletes. So even if you finish in the same margin, you put the same workout on day one and the same workout on the final day, the athlete order then becomes a lot more significant. It's much more punishing for the athlete that, say, finished in 10th, and a lot more rewarding for the athlete that finished in first. The point system already rewards the winning nature of the sport. So, and that bias, like last year, it was biased towards strength on the final days. So they took away the rope climbs, so the alpaca event kind of came like prowler, kettlebell. Then they had the back nine, which was like yoke carries, and
interesting. Don't give anyone any ideas.
So this year it goes to a gymnastic bias or a conditioning bias, whatever that may be. With just the events on the final day will be biased because of the change in scoring system. And so, does any of this affect the entertainment? No. But I think that, the talk is about fairness, safety, all of these things, and actually making it into what is a legitimate sport, having this variance, not randomness. It is a very important discussion, but it gets lost because it's still entertaining, Arguably, does it affect the entertainment value? Not really.
I understand the reason that those cuts is because of broadcast.
So this is the...
And they please explain if you know what that means.
Well, the argument,
I think I know what it means.
I think there's a few arguments. One is that obviously like a semi is when you've got 6 or it equates to 12 heats of athletes going through, it gets pretty boring because you're watching the same thing on repeat. So as this entertainment value broadcast, they argue they can do different events. But I don't believe that should be an excuse for changing the fairness. So you can't use the entertainment, the fact that there's more entertainment, as an excuse for taking away the fairness of the athletes. I think that should be kind of preconditioned in. If, for example, the resources aren't there, all these things, why are you taking 40 athletes through and then cutting them down to not give them that? Arguably, there's the full experience, which is more of a subjective feeling, but also then affecting the point system as it goes through. There's also the effect on the volunteers, the judges, was kind of another argument. I think the thing with this argument, I 100% agree. It's a long week for the judges and the volunteers, and that kind of leads into a bigger discussion of should you have all of these divisions going in 1 week, or do you kind of separate the masters? Team or age group divisions and other divisions for a separate weekend for different competitions. So it opens up different discussions. But I think ultimately you shouldn't be affecting the fairness or safety of the competition for the sake of entertainment. That's kind of where that principle, or I feel the principle should lie. And I think the two things kind of get confused, because if you just care about number one, that's fine. But it should still be a fair competition.
I think my parenting genes, my parenting side kicks in very heavily, because I just feel it's extremely unfair for all these people that are going to fund themselves to get to the games, to do all of those things, to then get cut on Friday or Saturday morning. And I just think it's just
well, because a lot of the athletes want to finish. And that's why I think the 30, even though it has these same effects, it wasn't as big an effect. So, the things that we're saying are still true, but they lessened it compared to, say, 2019, where it was it
was brutal.
It was like a reality TV
Carnage.
show. It was just ridiculous. And they obviously, realised that. It was just horrendous. But now they're going back to these cuts, and they're kind of arguing, it's for the entertainment of the sport. And it's I don't necessarily think somewhere in the foundations of things, the entertainment side needs to be taken into account rather than affecting the fairness of the competition.
The thing is that they constantly were coming back to, we want to professionalise, and of course that really means we want to monetise as well. But in order to be professional, there's lots of things that should be already agreed before the season even begins, like we've spoken about before, like movement standards, and it would be so great to know in advance, like rather than this week, that this is happening, so people have got more time to prepare themselves for those realities.
Yeah, and again, this is the big thing. They argue it doesn't affect the entertainment. I completely agree that the sport needs to grow and develop in order to be able to, for the sport to reach more people, for CrossFit to be able to reach more people, and be able to bring the health benefits that are there. I think can be kind of driven in this vessel of the sport. I do believe there are other things that can be done to help that professionalisation that don't necessarily get done.
Like what, for example?
We kind of enter into like very different discussions to go through, but I think, for example, the season structure is not necessarily optimal for having eyes on the sport. So one of the big things, I think I've spoken about this before, but you go open, quarterfinals, which are all online stages.
Yeah.
And then you have 3 weekends where you qualify every single athlete to the CrossFit Games at once.
It's like a headache of events.
Yeah, but how do you follow anything? It's very hard to follow. All of a sudden you've qualified like 80 individual athletes, 40 teams. And, it's really hard to know who's qualified, who's gone through, to follow all the weekends through. And then you wait 6 weeks and it's like games, boom. And that's really your like 2 big spectacles, semi-finals and games. And I think that there was a moment where they had the sanction season, where, for example, there would be certain events where athletes could qualify throughout the year, and it allows more eyeballs on the sport, because all of a sudden you're having these competitions where athletes can qualify to the games. It brings us full circle around together, and just more times over the year. But
then the problem you have with the eyeballs sort of concept is that those individual competitions then need to pay to stream it, for example, in order to have that wider coverage, which does make it more expensive. And then you've also got those events then have to somehow make money, or at least not lose it.
Yeah, so I think that you can go into, there's lots of different like avenues and details you can go into, but those avenues and details, there's really no point in discussing them until we kind of agree, okay, what's the bigger picture goal moving forward? Because if you don't have that bigger picture goal moving forward, it's just pointless discussing these details of how it will be done. But I think if there's an agreement, like, hey, this is the season structure, people think this would be optimal to grow the sport, how can that then be done? Becomes a different discussion.
So do you think that with the return of Castro, who is, back in the chair, do we think that things are going to progress after the games is finished? Like, do you think is there any kind of suggestion that there's going to be changes, or are you guys going to be the last to know?
We'll probably be the last to know, which was the style back in the day. It very much rings of like 2016, 2017, those kind of times.
Because for example, we don't really know that much about what's going to happen at the games this year, apart from the cups.
We know nothing.
And then last week there was a whole grips thing.
Yeah, so...
Like, if you don't know about the grips thing, which I imagine anybody who follows CrossFit will know, but there was this ridiculous new rule about where if you have a set of grips, they can only go to the middle finger, but as soon as who was it now? Darlin Pepper did it, and then he put his grips on, and he put his hands over the bar, and the grips are like down here. So of course they're going to do that because there's smaller space to go around. And then Dave Castro went onto his YouTube account and said, "Don't worry, guys, that's not what we meant." The kind of communication is all over the place again.
Yeah, so I think one thing, I can't remember when we did this the last time. Recorded one of these episodes. After Berlin. So it's like 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. And considering the magnitude of changes that we've had, all athletes qualify through, the games are happening in 3 weeks, we've completely changed the director of the sport or GM of the sport. we have like super little news. One thing I think is a really interesting thing is that there were probably, we don't have the numbers, but there are you have to assume there are over 200 drug tests done.
Yes.
So 200 drug tests, and we've heard
a
about...
couple of teams have been affected.
Yeah, so we've got 2 positives back from that. So it says over 200, that's less than 1%.
That's great.
Yeah, but compared to last year, it's completely different. And it makes you a little strange as to why, either release like the full list, all these people were negative. I think that transparency would be...
That would be great.
But it's very different. And just like such a black and white difference compared to last year, where even in South America, for example, they couldn't send people to the games because they hadn't tested far enough back in the field, which is not CrossFit's fault. It's they just didn't expect to have that problem. Whereas this year, you're saying out of all the 200 tests that were done, only 2 people come back positive. It's just such a wild discrepancy compared to previous years with people testing positive. So it's either that more tests are coming out, they've not got around to it. So I think one of the interesting things at the moment is the kind of lack of news. We're talking about grips, and you are right. The trouble is when these standards aren't clear, it just brings a lot of confusion.
Sure.
And at least Castro cleared the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a bit of an irrelevant equipment rule. It's not
I mean,
going to
why
affect
does it make? Why I don't even understand why it would make any difference.
Well, it doesn't make any difference, and that's why it's kind of irrelevant. I think they wanted to not have athletes relying on the grips to hang.
This is me pretending that I use grips, by the way.
Yeah. So the thing is that the grips can help grip strain, because when the strap goes around, you can kind of hang off the grip. It gives traction. But the rule that they've put in doesn't affect that, because you can still do exactly the same as you did. So it's just like one of those random... It's kind of like they've now put in extra work for themselves that probably won't have any benefit through.
So I'm like, what... You're going to basically have to go there and do the whole non-knowable thing.
Yeah, so that was one thing. So there is transparency from Castro's YouTube channel. I think one of the things he said on there was like about this unknowable aspect, that's the foundation of the games, and that's how it's going to be.
Okay.
So you're going to rock up and not know what's happening, which and I think the big thing is that ultimately these are the decisions that within the hands of the people who own the sport, and they're their decisions to take. And there's really never any repercussion of any of those decisions. It's like we choose to partake in this sport, and so we have to accept those decisions and how things are going to be. It's not just me. There's a whole group of people that don't necessarily agree with some of these decisions. As we kind of spoke about last time, it's just that I've become more public about these, opening up about these discussions that we may have in private with people. But it doesn't seem like anything, nothing really gets moved forward on these aspects. When
you're at the games, will you get the chance to speak to your kind of colleagues about these sorts of things?
I like to think we have a very good relationship amongst the coaches and different training programs, and to be able to speak about these issues. And I don't want to speak for anyone in these aspects. This is how I feel, but we do speak openly and have discussions and try to keep that interaction going in regards to this.
And what about I was going to say movement standards, but obviously we don't know. But I remember last year when they did the handstand push-up thing, that there was this event, I don't remember, was it event 3 or 4, and they had and the athletes had to handstand push up to a line, like it was like a deficit. Did you see on the French throwdown recently the handstand walk, forward facing handstand walk? What did you think about that one?
But I think they're quite...
I'm just wondering if that might get him a little
you
opportunity to shine.
You never know. I mean, the variance of what... I mean, even when you know a movement, for example, they might be swimming. is it open water? Is it in a pool? Is it what's it combined with? And all these things have such a big difference. And I don't know how many years of games it is now, like 14, 15, something like that. So the amount of things that we've already seen, and the fact they like to add in new things, means it's literally impossible to be able to train for everything that might show up, because you can't just, you swim open water, you swim in the pool, you swim by doing a CrossFit workout, combined with that, be it ski erg, or you do that with some gymnastic movement. Like, you're not going to be able to predict what is going to happen at the games. And so that's like, you try to get as much transfer as possible through the different movements that you are doing.
Last year, you did a lot of activations beforehand with GoWOD. Are you going to be doing the same thing this year?
Yeah, so we're back this year at Big Dane. We have a few lined up. I've not been sent the schedule yet, but I think basically
get on it.
leading up to Thursday, we'll be doing quite a lot. And then in theory, the individual starts on Thursday, so I'll be
a bit busy.
Bit busy.
So if people want to do those things if they're going to the games, they can sign up through GoWOD, I guess.
Yeah, just follow GoWOD, and then they'll be releasing all the information. It sells out super quick. I mean, last year, like, everything sold out within minutes.
It was a really nice atmosphere, actually,
wasn't
it? And Manu, you're gonna, I'm assuming that you'll go. You can talk, say something to the people.
I'm just wishing to be there.
Yeah, you can.
Which journey again?
It was really good atmosphere. Big Dane is like this big CrossFit box outside of Madison, and I don't know if they'll do the same thing this year. But last year they had a car park outside with like all of their athletes had their own.
Or the
car
previous
park.
Winners.
Yeah, they had they wrote out the people's names on the car park spaces, so you couldn't park in, I don't know, Briggs's space or whatever. It was like it was really cute. And then inside they had a wall of portraits of all the athletes who signed their pictures. It was like really nice.
Yeah, it's very well done.
And I guess Carmen is going to take a lot of t-shirts with her.
Yeah, maybe, if we get them on time.
What colour are they this year?
To be decided.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Maybe decide soon.
Yeah.
I feel orange would be good.
Okay.
Orange is my colour today.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing on the list.
I mean, for all of the kind of, oh my God, the games, it's so stressful. Actually, it's a really exciting, cool experience as well, isn't it?
Well, if it wasn't, we wouldn't still be doing it. So, there is this, we talk about the way things can be improved and this fairness of competition, but the entertainment value is still there. It's very exciting to watch the games, what happens, and so there is this entertainment value. Like, it's fun being in Madison, it's great watching the athletes, it's exciting to see them all throw down and compete. So that's why, otherwise we wouldn't still be here doing it.
I have shocking FOMO now. I just won't be able to talk to either of you anymore. That's it. I can't be your friend. It's just, that's it. Cut more. I think it would be difficult for Adrian Bosman to top some of the things he did last year, especially the Capital, which was an extraordinary event.
Yes,
that was, like, from a photo point of view, the best one for me, because it was like such a great combination of like being outside, being in all these different environments, funky, cool things they were being made to pick up and move around, intense audience or crowd interaction, lots of sweat. It was like people were so hot. It was really difficult to watch some of them struggling, but then like amazing pictures at the end when they're coming up the stairs to the Capitol. Now, he's already said he's not doing that again.
Yeah, I presume they don't like to repeat those spectacles, but you would think they tried to replicate some of the energy that it created.
Yeah.
I think that having it within Madison, not just in the Align Energy Centre.
Yeah.
you maybe see something like that, because I think they really enjoyed the everyday people, not necessarily just like the pure fans that were there for CrossFit, but actually having like Madison community who might not have gone to see the games there to watch it. So I can see them, based on the success of the capital, doing something in the town again.
I hope so, because that was my favourite. Well, we shall see. So 3 weeks tomorrow.
Yeah, 3 weeks tomorrow. They'll be.
Dun, dun, dun.
They'll probably be sleeping still.
Yeah.
But.
Or not sleeping.
Well, they might be. It's only midday, so time difference wise. But about to wake up for their first event. Yeah.
Exciting. I guess I'll see you after that then.
Yeah, we'll be coming back straight away this year.
You're not going on holiday to make it even worse?
No.
Okay.
We'll fly back on like a few days after.
Okay. Well, have a good time. Good luck. Lots of luck to Moritz, and I hope Ella enjoys herself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Took her a long time to get there.
Yeah, it's been...
well, not a long time in comparison to other people, but I mean, like a lot of work to get where she...
Yeah, it's been a steady line forward,
So I'm happy for her that she's made it.
Yeah.